Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Influence Economy podcast. I'm your host, Shayna Davis. I'm so glad that you're here today. But before we get started, if you've ever heard before, you know I've got a favor to ask. And if you're new here, yes, I'm already asking you for something before I give you anything. Just get over it. So my request is that wherever you are listening to this episode, I just want you to take a screenshot. With that screenshot, I want you to post it on LinkedIn, tag me, and then I just want to hear your biggest aha moment or your biggest takeaway from this episode. And the reason why I do that is because I believe that there are far too many leaders that just don't actually know how to cultivate and build the external influence that I think the new world demands. And sharing these episodes will expose them to the signals that I think that they need to develop in order to lead better. So I appreciate you in advance for being willing to share. I'm going to read my guest bio, and we've already been having a lot of fun in what we call, I guess, the green room. And so I know that this is going to be another great conversation. My guest today is a speaker, author, magician, and founder and CEO of Engageify. For nearly 2 decades, he's been traveling the world with his team of certified infotainers, creating crowds of interesting prospects and presenting brand defining performances in the trade show exhibits of the fastest growing companies. After logging thousands of hours of engaging all kinds of people at all kinds of events around the world, he has codified engagement and now trains teams and individuals how to engage their prospects, customers, and teammates so that they can deepen connection and command attention. He's also the author of the book Engage First: Capture Attention, Build Trust, and Drive Real Results. I am excited to welcome to the show Anders Boulanger.
Perfect, Shayna. Perfect pronunciation. You
I
nailed
nailed
it.
it.
You nailed it. I love it. Which is rare, actually. When I come onto a podcast, the last name gets slaughtered a lot of the time. So hats off to you.
I don't think that my first name Shayna is that difficult, but it's been slaughtered all my life. And so for someone who has their name mispronounced more times than I would love to admit, I try to do my best to make sure that I get others right. And if I feel like I can't say it, I just won't say it.
Well, that's it. It makes you more sensitive to name pronunciation when it's happened to you. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Anders, where I want to start the conversation today is that you talk about commanding attention as currency. And
Mm.
I have been using the word currency over the last several years in a lot of business context because I really think that it helps to drive home the idea of the importance of a matter. And so, you've been traveling the world, you've been doing your thing at these trade shows, and you've been kind of talking about commanding attention as currency. And so I'm curious, when you look at leaders today, where do you see them like undervaluing exactly how expensive it is to lose attention, like externally outside of the walls of their organization? Because I'm like, listen, your internal leadership a lot of times takes care of itself, and you may ruin some stuff internally, but where real trust and perception and things are eroded is when you have to be forward facing and shit falls apart. So I would love, like, where are they like missing the fact of like, this is expensive if you don't get this right.
Right. Yeah. You know what? I love everything you're saying there. That whole kind of internal focus versus external focused, right? When we're
Yeah.
customer facing, it really can cost a company a lot. And so when we talk about currency as well, there's something where we literally do pay attention with a few things. Well, two things I should say. Our time, right? We actually have to, if we're paying attention, it does take time, but we also pay attention with calories. And let me explain
Mm,
what I mean by that. Evolutionarily speaking, we have to conserve energy, and our brain is only 2% of our body weight, but it consumes 20% of our energy. And so, what happens when something gets too complicated, it gets too complex, we check out. I think we've all been there where, we're not really paying attention to a presentation or someone we're talking to. We're thinking about what we want to eat for dinner that night or
mhm.
whatever it is, and you kind of check out. At that point, you've lost attention. And so that idea of simplifying down whatever it is that you are communicating is going to help keep that attention. And so that idea that we are making sure that we are not wasting calories of other
Yeah.
people, and all that brain work that's happening to follow along. So I work with a lot of technology companies, and it's
Same.
so easy to get overly complex that, it's just like, whoa, guys, I have to come in as kind of that outsider and like, I don't even know what the heck you guys are talking about. Can we just like, so to be that filter and for leaders out there to actually watch themselves too, that they don't fall prey to the curse of knowledge. Not
Yeah.
everyone knows what you know, right?
And when they are making these missteps, what is it costing the company?
Well, it depends on what area.
Mhm.
It's like how do we actually, really quantify that? One of the examples I talk about in my book is that there are some pay to play speaking spots at conferences. So a
Mhm.
company could be paying $75,000 for like a 30 to 40-minute spot. And then they just throw on some speaker that they didn't really, vet, or they didn't train, and they go up there and they spend that time. But how many people actually pay attention? How many people are going to take action off that information? So in that case, that $75,000 could be just completely wasted, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of hard depending on the situation, but we do know that, you know we want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be remembered, and let's just face it, you can't buy what you don't remember.
Absolutely. One of the things that I try to remind companies of all the time is that people trust people, they don't trust companies. Like the company is just a building, it's a brand, it's a logo, it's this kind of sometimes intangible thing. But it's people that are representing your brand, and it's people that are going to determine whether or not they trust your company or they don't trust your company. And so what I like to remind my clients is that if you have people that are in forward facing roles, and like yourself, I work with a lot of tech companies, and these tech guys, that's not always their jam. Like they're good at product, they're good at coding, they're good at managing their internal teams, but then when they have to engage externally, whether it's commenting on a social media post or a media interview or a panel, or anytime they have to have a conversation with an investor or a potential hire, I'm like, it can cost you everything. Because if someone, and we're not just talking about the snafus where people, it's like open foot, insert mouth. But if they're not talking in a way that builds trust and credibility, it can cost you your next round of funding. It can cost you a top talent deciding to go work for your competitor instead of going to work for you. And so when I hear companies say like, "Oh, I don't really think it's that important, like how well, we're engaging externally," and I'm like, it can be very, very expensive and actually cost you everything that is on the line, especially when I feel like, Anders, there are three headwinds that all companies are experiencing right now. It doesn't matter the industry, it doesn't matter the size. Everyone is in a war over talent. Everyone is filling the trust gaps that we're experiencing in this day and age, and everyone is being disrupted by technology. And it's like, if your leaders are not equipped to be able to influence and engage well when they have to represent your company, it can make your job of fighting those headwinds even more difficult than it is going to be if they don't.
And these little moments, like some of these details, like we talk about moments of engagement, or moments of
Hmm.
truth, if you want to call it that, right? And it's like you're building trust or you're losing trust always. And so when you continue to lose trust in your way that you influence, whether that is a leader, in a public facing role. I have one example where there's an Indian gentleman who became a CEO of a company, and there was a V in the name of the company, and
Hmm.
he kept pronouncing it as a W, and it
Oh,
was the
wow.
first letter of the company. So without outing who it is or anything, but it's just the idea that when your leader doesn't pronounce the company how everyone else pronounces it, what's that doing for your brand? So
Jeez.
that's a misstep, right? There's these little things. So these soft skills, these engagement skills, the ability to influence it, the higher you go up in the hierarchy of the company, the more weight that carries, the more movement, good or bad, right? In terms of moving the needle. And so I'm with you on that for sure.
I want to unpack this speaking notion again for a moment, because especially, like you and I both work with a lot of tech companies. There's a lot of tech founders and tech teams or investors of those companies that care how well they do that listen to this show. And what I've noticed over the years is that I've given kind of a went back in time and gave a timeline on a previous episode where I said, if you think about what I can call executive presence 1.0, I think about like back in the IBM days. The
Mm.
company was the brand. Like if you didn't have a reason to know, you probably had no idea who the leaders of the actual company was. Then you fast forward to Steve Jobs, and it's what I consider executive presence 2.0, where it's like, oh, the CEO is starting to become more of the brand.
And
And where
celebrity, right? Like there was that
and
piece to it, right?
celebrity
Yeah,
and
yeah.
celebrity, absolutely. And where I look at where we are now, and I look at companies like Nvidia, where it's like they are recognizing that it doesn't just need to be the CEO that can represent the company well outside of the four walls, the entire core leadership team. And so when you look at the fact that, especially with tech companies, that oftentimes the head of technology, the head of engineering, the head of data or product has to now be in a forward facing role when they've never had to do that before, especially if the company is a startup and is just, and they're having to convey what it is that they're building and how it's going to have impact, et cetera, et cetera. And that's not their jam. And they may not have been trained well when they're speaking. And so I'm just curious, in your experience, when you're actually seeing these leaders speak externally, what are some of the signals that you can recognize right away that, like, oh wow, they're going to lose the room? Like, what are some of those things? I mean, outside of obviously pronouncing the doggone company's name wrong, but what are
Right.
some of those other things that you see that you're like, oh yeah, they're about to lose the room?
Yeah. Just before I get into that, I just wanted to comment on something you had said there, which was,
Sure.
about the 1.0, 2.0 kind of piece. Along with that, I feel like the idea of personal branding has
Yes.
developed, right? And so
100%.
even though you're working for a company and of course social media being part of that, people are building their own brand while they're building the company's brand because
Correct.
they realize they're not always going to be with that company and
And
they
if they
want some
don't realize that, they
cachet.
need to.
Yeah, right. And so they want to, build a following, build, that kind and now because of social media and heck, we're here we are on a podcast, Shayna, and we're going to be on YouTube, we're going to be everywhere. Uh, we're all, our own broadcast company
Yeah.
in terms of content marketing, in terms of what have you, right? So, we're learning as we go with social media. But okay, to get back to the leaders out there, what are some of the things they do? Um, One of the things that is so common in tech is monotone voice, right? Just Shayna's rolling her eyes right now, which is like she's seen that before. She's been there, and so like vocal engagement, and we were talking a little bit about that beforehand. Vocal training in the green room. It's so overlooked, and
Hmm.
it's not like it's not like we're a speech pathologist kind of like we're
Yeah.
not trying to get over a stutter, although a lot of those exercises are useful for people for
Hmm.
enunciation and what have you, right? But when you start actually paying attention to how you sound and listening to that and seeing how you can convey meaning in different ways, it's I think it just kind of opens up and if you look at NLP, neuro linguistic programming, the language of tones, it's kind of like a secret language that people don't even realize and are oblivious to. So the amount of meaning and engagement that can be created through the voice is quite overlooked. Is one. Um, just how people move, in terms of the physicality, and I think oftentimes technical people who are very smart, very they're maybe not be comfortable in these kind of public facing positions at first, right? And the more experience you get, the better you get. But some people often look very stiff and uncomfortable, and right away when you see someone uncomfortable, that reflects back on you as the audience and makes you feel uncomfortable. And so it's the CEOs that are so at ease, that are so relaxed, that you feel like you're in good hands,
Yeah.
right? It's like you're creating safety for the investors, for the shareholders, the audience, all of that. So there is something about having that relaxed uh, just way about you that makes the audience feel good and just know that you're going to take them to the place that you want to go to, and you're not going to feel awkward while doing it.
Absolutely. One of the things that I would add to that is when a leader is speaking on behalf of the company, but they have not thought at all about what their own unique point of view is, either about the industry or where the industry is heading or how what their company is doing is going to cause some type of impact or what it is that most people are getting wrong that they need to be able to recognize. I don't want to say the name of the event, but I was at an event in Dallas recently, and there were a lot of tech companies that were there, and many of them were being asked questions by the audience. And every answer that a couple of the leaders gave, they were only just regurgitating the brand message that we could easily find on the website. And so, one of the things that I think can help you lose the room when you're speaking on behalf of the company is not giving any thought at all as to like what is your belief, what are your
Mm,
guiding thoughts about what it is that the topic is, not just what the company
yeah.
stands for, not just what the company is building, but you mean to tell me that you've been in this industry for 10, 15, 20, 30 years and you don't have any of your own unique points of view? And it made me think about that when you started talking about leaders that are starting to recognize, personal branding, meaning that just because you work for a brand, you're still a brand inside of that brand. And it bothers me when I ask leaders, like, well, tell me about your thought leadership or tell me about your POV. And they either give me deer in headlights because they have no response at all, or they give me their job description. And I'm like, that is one of the fastest ways to lose trust and lose credibility is to not be able to demonstrate some level of personal authority when you're representing your company.
I think there is a balance because I can just see like the chief communications officer or whoever's in charge of messaging, stressing, the CEO, stay on message, right?
Yeah.
And knowing that a CEO's comments can like rock a stock price if they,
Hmm.
so I can see where sometimes personal belief around certain things might have some guardrails around it
Yeah.
from a business point of view. But I like what you're saying, and I feel like there's also room for who are you personally,
Yes.
right? Like, could we tell a story
Hmm.
that is, and stories are a great way to engage because of the emotions and the visual. Our brain just takes over like we're reading a book, right? We just go there mentally. And what is a story that you can tell from your personal life that is going to humanize you? It's going to make you more likable, and therefore growing your own personal brand without having to make it look like you're trying to do that, right? You just start falling in love with this guy, and you're going to see their leadership. You're going to respect who they are because of how these stories are told and shared. And I think there's a lot of room for that for in corporate. Corporate itself needs to have more emotion.
Yeah. And more personality.
Yes, yes, yes,
I
for sure.
actually worked for a tech company and I was the senior product marketing manager. I think that was my title. And one of the things that I struggled with is that I was not accustomed to creating marketing that had to be general and vanilla and have no, personality to it at all. And I had to really struggle to kind of shrink into that box. But I do want to clarify, um, you know, and when I say like, what is your own unique point of view? It doesn't have to be like, like a contrarian opinion that is going to, destroy, the company reputation. But sometimes it could be something like, let's just say, for example, you work for a consumer packaged good company and they create like household products. Your unique point of view could be, I don't think products should just do something. I think it should make people feel a certain way or improve the efficiency in your life, but have some form of thought leadership in the area, or even being able to say, here's where it is that I feel like the industry is going. And
Mhm.
since the industry is going there, this product that our company is building is really going to be able to help do that. But if the only thing you can say is like, this is who the company is, this is what we're building, people are going to be looking like, dude, I don't even know that I want to come work for you because you don't even seem human. You just sound like a robot that has just memorized what somebody told you to say.
So this reminds me of something too that I've talked about in videos that I've made, is that I'm often in trade show booths and I'll build a crowd for the next presenter. Sometimes I'm
Yeah.
just doing the presentations, but so sometimes we get different individuals coming from different companies who are product marketing managers, who are different, and some of them are just like so good, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like just so, and they're passionate. And then I finally figured out, oh, these are founders of young startups,
Yeah.
right? So the founders, they had a whole reason for starting this, and they come across in a way that is just like so electric, and you just want
Yeah.
to plug into them, right? And then there's other people who are just kind of doing their job, right? And so when I do trainings for speakers and what have you, I'll get them talking about something they are passionate about, golf or whatever
Yeah.
their hobby is, right? Crocheting or whatever, and get them, and you see them lit up, and you're like, okay, can we borrow that light up and
Yeah.
plug it into the other
Can we
content now,
transfer
right?
that
Yeah, can we
energy
transfer
over
that?
here?
Because people like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's the heart, the authenticity, the passion, that is all missing. Not all the time, but most of the time when I see people speak about companies, about products, about things, it's like we have this energy, we have this our presence is able to influence others through our energy, right?
Absolutely.
And so we got to harness that, right? And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, Shayna, with it's all about influence here. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
No, but I love that we're saying the same thing and have different ways that it can be applied and different ways that we've seen it, because I think it just gives even more depth, to the
connection,
conversation. So people are like,
right?
oh, it's not just our company that is, like needing some help.
Well, and that's like so. I'll talk about my book just real quick, just because
Yeah.
it's just apropos. The whole idea about engage first on my, you can kind of see it, but there's some other words in the background on the
Okay.
cover, and so it says speak, lead, sell, persuade, influence, communicate, like all of these, whatever your intention is to do, you're going to waste a lot of time and a lot of energy if you don't engage first, right? We need to get them on
Yes.
board, and we need to make sure they're listening and connected, so that what we say, what we communicate lands, and that we can, create an outcome out of that.
When I was doing my research in preparation for this interview, I see that you've kind of coined the phrase rehumanizing executive communication,
Well,
right?
rehumanizing business through engagement. We talk about that
Yeah.
quite a bit. And
So
and
what,
yeah, go
how
ahead.
does that actually, how does that act, like what exactly, I mean, I think we've talked a little bit about what it means, but like, how does a leader put some more of that in practice?
Right. Well, it's, for us, what it's really about, what we've been kind of talking about, is
Okay.
bringing in the emotion, bringing in the stories, uh, bringing
I
in
gotcha.
content that isn't necessarily like nowadays. I just think about like all the AI content. Like they talk about 50% of internet traffic is bots, right? And
Mm-hmm.
50% of content on the internet is now AI written. Like, so we're getting in more and more inauthentic. We need to like lean into our humanness more, which in some ways can be maybe mistakes, right? Sometimes being too perfect isn't interesting, right? So rehumanizing can be just relatable, again, sharing who you are on a personal side of things. There's a lot of ways that we can do this, but it is about, not going towards this neat and perfect kind of thing. It's okay that it's unperfect and but real, that people
Yeah.
can relate to that.
I like that you said striking the balance, because we don't want you to be so far on the end of the spectrum that, it sounds memorized, it sounds scripted, it sounds textbook, but we're also not asking you to be so, quote, I'm air quoting if you're not watching the video. We're not asking you to be so authentic that you've now gone rogue.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know?
I hear you on that, Shayna, because there is a a sweet spot there for sure. That, because there are some people who want to be so authentic, but you're like, yeah, but that's authentic to you,
Yeah.
but there's also different sides of you. And it's the idea of highlighting the side of you that you can be authentic
Yeah.
and works in the situation,
Yeah.
right? Because not all of you is right for everyone, and it's and I, even like the idea of personas. So we talk about engaging personas in some of our trainings, and it's so what does that sweet spot for you look like, right? And the word persona actually comes from the Greek masks that they would put on in during Greek comedies and tragedies, but the sona part was about the sound because they were actually like loudspeakers to spread to the stands in these Greek amphitheaters. So the idea that we wear different masks,
Hmm.
right? We have different personas, even though we're the same person. It's not being inauthentic. You're a different person when you're with your family. You're a different person when you're just with your spouse. You're a different person when you're with your kids. Different person when you're at work, right? And so it's bringing together those right elements and those right pieces. And when you talk about executive presence, which we touched on a little bit, it's a combination of warmth and competence, right? So the warmth is the kindness, the smiles, the being open, being present with people, but the competence meaning that you can get things done and you are a serious individual that can get things done, right?
Yeah.
But finding that balance. If you're all one and not the other, something's off. And so
Yeah.
executive presence really is kind of finding that sweet spot between those characteristics, if you will.
I have a question that may or may not be hard for you to answer.
Okay.
So, in your book, Engage First, and the reason why I say this may be hard to answer is because it's a thick book and you wrote it, so I know you love everything in it. I would love for you to tell me what is your, I'm not going to call it the best because I'm sure they're all great. What's your favorite tip that you share in your book?
Favorite tip.
That's why I was
Ooh,
like, it may be
yeah,
hard because
that
I know
is
you love them
hard.
all.
That is hard. Yeah. And here it's like, um, favorite tip. You know what? I think just because I was just talking about this is coming to mind. There's a whole chapter on authority
Okay.
and kind of like, who you are and standing in that power and kind of owning it, right? Not kind
Yeah.
of owning it, pardon me.
Yeah.
Uh, in that way that it's like at first I never, when I was younger in my career and everything, I didn't kind of get it. And I kind of felt like, I think everyone, there's imposter syndrome for
Hmm.
everyone, to
Hmm.
some degree, more for others than some, right? And that idea of like, do you have a right to be sitting at the table? Do you have a right to be in the room? That sort of thing. And you need experience and it takes a while to get there, but not undermining your message is what I mean by authority, right?
Yeah.
Is that even how we were talking about voice before, some people go up with intonation at the end of a sentence. So it kind of sounds like they're asking question when they're just talking, right?
Oh,
So, yeah, you're like, right. And so how can you be, yeah, how can people pay attention to you if it sounds like you're asking all the time, right? So knowing what's what's up and what's down, right? Like you can, if you can say with certainty, like the sun will come up tomorrow. I know that for a fact, right? Finding areas that you can just assert and plug into that and see what that feels like, right? And so when you speak and you want to get a point across, come across in that way, right?
yeah.
And just frame things in a way that people can understand that this is important. I should listen, right? That's the thing. You can have a great message. You can be, you can, and authority can go to what you're wearing too, right?
Hmm.
Like if you don't look the part, that can hurt you as well, right? So it's like just that authority is the packaging, is the framing of who you are and where you're coming from, and I think that's kind of a an important part of that.
I think
Important
that
part of
that's a great favorite tip. So, as we're beginning to wrap up, if people want to follow you on social media, where would you like them to follow you?
So LinkedIn is definitely the place for me, and it's
Okay.
just Anders Boulanger, all together is the handle on that. And yeah, I love LinkedIn, and after it's so much more going on than it used to be. I remember back before you couldn't even do pictures on LinkedIn. Like, my goodness, we've come a long way.
We've come
So
a long way.
that's definitely the place to connect.
And if people want to take things further with you, what would you like to offer?
Well, on there's a website for the book Engage First. It's engage-first.com. On there, there's you can get 4 ways to engage PDF if you just want to opt in and get that. If you do get the book, which you can grab on that page as well, you can come back and you get a free presentation training based off of the book. You just kind of got to go to the right page and fill in the right word and fix up. So yeah, that's a little bonus for people if you.
Awesome. Well, I am going to make sure that the links to all of that is in the show notes. So that way they don't have to like, what did he say? How do you spell it? All the things, all they have to do is just click it. And so, Anders, I thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your nuggets with my audience. I know that this episode is going to be a hit. Everyone, I asked again that you share this episode and that you go back and listen to previous and future episodes as well. Everyone, have a great day. Bye bye.